chosen ones, you're the one in a million to bring justice to the world. Have you ever looked at the world and felt the weight of its injustices pressing down on your shoulders? Like you were born to do something about it, but the house seems so vast, so unreachable. Let me tell you something that might startle you. That feeling is no coincidence. You didn't stumble into it by accident. You are one of the chosen ones. And no, this isn't some fantasy or grandiose delusion. This is real. You see, the world has a way of calling out to those who are meant to awaken. It whispers in your soul, sometimes softly, sometimes like a deafening roar. And it says, you are here for a reason. You're not like the rest. You're not meant to sleep through life. But let me ask you this, have you been listening? Have you truly leaned into that voice? Or have you silenced it because it feels like too much responsibility? We live in a world where distractions are endless. Social media, entertainment, constant noise, they drown out the whispers of the soul. But here's the truth: you feel unsettled because you're not living in alignment with what you were meant to do. You feel restless because deep down, you know you were chosen to be a force of justice in a world that desperately needs it. But let's pause for a moment. What does it even mean to be chosen? Is it some divine lottery? Is it a title handed down to only the perfect, the enlightened, or the extraordinary? No, it's none of those things. Being chosen isn't about how qualified you are. It isn't about how perfect your life looks or how many spiritual books you've read. It's about your willingness to say yes to a higher calling, even when you feel unprepared, even when you feel small.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Every chosen one I've ever encountered, in history or in the present, started the same way: uncertain, flawed, and often scared. Think of people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., or even ordinary individuals who stood up in extraordinary times. They didn't start out as heroes. They started out as people who heard the same call you're hearing now, the call to justice, to truth, to healing, and they chose to listen. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Listening to that call requires you to step out of your comfort zone. It requires you to confront parts of yourself that you'd rather avoid. Because let's be real, how can you bring justice to the world if you haven't faced the injustices within yourself? How can you fight for truth when you're still afraid to look at your own shadows? This is where the real work begins within. And I'm not talking about surface-level self-improvement or trendy affirmations that make you feel good for a moment. I'm talking about the deep, raw, unfiltered kind of inner work that shakes you to your core. The kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to peel back the layers and see what's been buried underneath? Because here's the paradox of being a chosen one: the same world that needs you, that cries out for justice, will also try to break you. It will test you, challenge you, and make you doubt your own power. You'll face criticism, rejection, and moments of overwhelming doubt. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to shrink back, to convince yourself that you're not enough. But let me tell you something, no one else will. Those moments of doubt are not signs that you're unworthy. They are the initiation. They are the fire that forges you into who you're meant to be. Do you think the world's greatest change makers never doubted themselves? Do you think they never wanted to give up? Of course they did, but what set them apart was their willingness to keep going, even when it felt impossible. And that's what being chosen is about. It's not about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. It's about being human, flawed, imperfect, messy, and still choosing to rise. Now, let's get practical, because this isn't just about lofty ideas or abstract inspiration. If you're truly serious about stepping into your role as a chosen one, here's where you start. First, take a hard look at your life. Where are you out of alignment with your values? Where are you tolerating injustice, not just in the world around you, but within yourself? Maybe it's the way you talk to yourself, the way you let fear dictate your decisions, or the way you've settled for less than you deserve. Start there. Start cleaning up your own energy, your own life. Second, figure out what breaks your heart. What injustice in the world keeps you up at night? Is it poverty, inequality, environmental destruction, corruption? Whatever it is, that's your clue. That's where your unique gifts and passions intersect with the world's greatest needs. Pay attention to that. And third, take one small step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to start a movement overnight. Just take one step. Maybe it's speaking up about something you've been silent about. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's simply committing to your own growth so you can show up as a stronger, more grounded version of yourself. Remember, being a chosen one isn't about doing it all. It's not about saving the entire world. It's about doing your part, no matter how small it seems. Because here's the secret: when you do your part, you inspire others to do theirs. And that's how change happens. But before we move forward, I want to leave you with a question. And I want you to really sit with it, to let it sink in. What if everything you've been through, every struggle, every heartbreak, every moment of pain was preparing you for this? What if none of it was random? What if it was all shaping you into the person you need to be to fulfill your purpose? Take a moment to reflect on that. Because the answer might just change everything. The fire within turning pain into purpose. Let's take a moment to reflect on your life, the struggles, the heartbreaks, the moments that made you question whether you could keep going. Have you ever wondered why it had to be so hard? Why you had to endure so much? The truth is, the fire you've walked through wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. Every wound, every failure, every rejection, it was all fuel for the fire within you. And that fire, it's your greatest gift. You see, pain has a way of shaping us in ways comfort never could. It has a way of breaking us open, forcing us to confront the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. But here's the thing: most people stop there. They get stuck in the pain, consumed by it, defined by it. But you're different. You're not here to be a victim of your pain. You're here to transform it. Think about this for a moment. What if the very things you've been running from, the heartbreak, the failures, the disappointments, are the exact things that will lead you to your purpose? What if the wounds you carry are not signs of weakness but proof of your strength? The world doesn't need more people who've had it easy. It doesn't need more people who've never been tested. It needs people who've been through the fire and come out stronger. And people like you. Because when you've been broken and you've put yourself back together, you become unshakable. You become the kind of person who can stand in the face of injustice and say, "I've been through worse. This won't break me." But here's the catch: transforming your pain into purpose isn't automatic. It requires a choice, a commitment. It requires you to stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with this?" So, let's get practical. How do you turn your pain into purpose? How do you take the fire within you and use it to ignite change in the world? First, you have to own your story. So many people are afraid to face their past, to confront their wounds, because they think it makes them weak. But the truth is, your story is your power. Think about it: every great leader, every change maker, every chosen one you've ever admired has a story. A story of struggle, of pain, of overcoming. That's what makes them relatable. That's what makes them human. So, what's your story? What have you been through that could inspire someone else? Maybe it's a childhood of neglect. Maybe it's a battle with addiction. Maybe it's a moment when you lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. Whatever it is, own it. Don't hide from it. Because your story isn't just about you, it's about the people who need to hear it. Second, find the lesson in the pain. Every struggle you've faced has taught you something, whether you realize it or not. Maybe it taught you resilience. Maybe it taught you empathy. Maybe it taught you how to fight for what you believe in. Take a moment to reflect on your pain and ask yourself, what did this teach me? How can I use this lesson to help others? And third, take action. This is where most people get stuck. They get so caught up in their healing journey that they forget the point of healing isn't just to feel better, it's to become better, to become someone who can make a difference. So, take what you've learned, take the fire within you, and do something with it. Start small if you have to. Share your story with someone who needs to hear it. Volunteer for a cause that resonates with you. Speak up about an injustice you've been silent about. But here's the most important part. Don't wait until you feel ready. You'll never feel ready. You'll never feel ready. You'll never feel like you've healed enough, grown enough, or learned enough. And that's okay. Because being a chosen one isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing. And I know what you're thinking. But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough? What if I make things worse? Let me remind you, failure is just another word for growth. Every time you fall, every time you stumble, you're learning. You're becoming stronger. And the world needs your courage far more than it needs your perfection. So, let me ask you this: what are you going to do with the fire within you? Are you going to let it burn you alive, or are you going to use it to light the way for others? Because here's the truth: your pain has a purpose. Your struggles have meaning. And when you choose to rise from the ashes of your past, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of person who can change the world. Take a moment to sit with that. Feel the fire. Feel the power. And remember, you are the one in a million. You are the chosen one. The courage to stand alone. Why the path of justice is lonely but worth it. Let's be honest, being one of the chosen ones is not a path for the faint of heart. It's not glamorous, and it's certainly not easy. In fact, one of the hardest truths you'll face on this journey is that sometimes you'll have to stand alone. There will be moments when no one understands you, when people doubt you, mock you, or even turn against you. And I won't sugarcoat it, it will hurt. But here's the thing: this loneliness is not a punishment. It's a test. It's part of what makes you who you are meant to become. Think about it. Every great figure who dared to stand for justice, truth, and change faced isolation at some point. They were ridiculed, betrayed, and often left to walk their path alone. But they didn't let that stop them. Why? Because they understood something most people don't. The price of standing for what's right is often standing alone. Now, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Are you willing to walk this path, even if it means losing people along the way, even if it means being misunderstood? Are you willing to stand in your truth, even when it feels like the world is against you? You see, most people are afraid of being alone. They stay silent, they shrink themselves, they conform, all because they fear rejection. But you're not most people. You're the one in a million. And this is what sets you apart: your willingness to stand alone if that's what it takes to bring justice to the world. But let me be clear, standing alone doesn't mean you're truly alone. In fact, some of the most profound connections you'll ever experience will come during those moments of solitude. When you strip away the noise, the distractions, and the false friendships, you'll discover something extraordinary: a deeper connection with yourself, with your purpose, and with the universe itself. This is the paradox of loneliness. It feels like a void, an emptiness, but in reality, It's a space for transformation. It's in the silence that you hear the whispers of your soul. It's in the stillness that you find clarity, and it's in the solitude that you discover your true strength. So, how do you navigate this loneliness? How do you keep going when the weight of it feels unbearable? First, remember why you started. Think back to the moment you realized you were different, that you were meant for something greater. That moment wasn't a coincidence, it was a calling. And whenever you feel like giving up, return to that moment. Let it remind you of the fire within you, the fire that no amount of loneliness can extinguish. Second, cultivate a relationship with yourself. Most people spend their entire lives running from themselves, afraid of what they might find if they stop and look within. But you can't afford to run. You need to know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, and your dreams. Because when you truly know yourself, loneliness loses its power. It becomes less of a burden and more of an opportunity to grow. Third, find your tribe. Yes, the path of a chosen one can be lonely, but that doesn't mean you're destined to walk it completely alone. There are others out there, other chosen ones who feel the same fire, the same calling. Seek them out. They might not look like you, think like you, or live near you, but they exist. And when you find them, you'll realize something incredible: you were never truly alone. Finally, trust the process. Loneliness, as painful as it is, serves a purpose. It strips away the distractions, the false comforts, and the illusions. It forces you to confront yourself and your mission. And when you come out on the other side, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose than ever before. But I want to leave you with one final thought. What if the loneliness you're feeling isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path, but a sign that you're on the right one? What if it's the universe's way of preparing you for what's to come? Sit with that question. Let it sink in. And remember, standing alone doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're brave enough to stand for something, even when no one else will. The ripple effect, how one chosen one can change the world. Take a deep breath. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on everything we've explored so far: the fire within you, the pain you've endured, the courage it takes to stand alone. Now, I want you to imagine something. Close your eyes and picture a single drop of water falling into a still lake. Watch as it hits the surface and sends ripples outward, one after another, reaching farther than you could have ever imagined. That drop of water is you. You may think, I'm just one person. How can I possibly bring justice to a world so vast, so broken? But here's the truth: change doesn't begin with the masses. It begins with one person, one act of courage, one moment of truth, one choice to rise above fear and take action. And that one person, that's you. You see, the world doesn't need you to fix everything. It doesn't need you to carry the entire weight of injustice on your shoulders. What it needs is your ripple. It needs your unique voice, your unique perspective, and your unique contribution. Because when you step into your purpose, when you say yes to the calling, you inspire others to do the same. Think about it. Every great movement in history started with one person, one spark, one ripple. Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. Malala Yousafzai standing up for education. Greta Thunberg sitting alone with a sign about climate change. None of them knew, in the beginning, how far their actions would reach. None of them could have predicted the waves of change they would create. And yet, they acted. They said, I may be just one person, but I am enough. And so are you. But let's break this down, because I know the idea of changing the world can feel overwhelming. How do you start? Where do you begin? First, understand that your ripple begins in your immediate circle. It starts with the way you show up in your everyday life. How do you treat the people around you? How do you respond to injustice when you see it, even on a small scale? Maybe it's standing up for someone being mistreated at work. Maybe it's having a difficult but necessary conversation with a loved one. Maybe it's simply choosing kindness in a world that often feels cold. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're not. They're the first ripples. Second, find your unique gift. Every chosen one has something they're uniquely equipped to offer the world. Maybe it's your voice, your creativity, your empathy, or your ability to organize and lead. Whatever it is, lean into it. Use it. Your gift is the tool you were given to create change. Third, take consistent action. The ripple effect doesn't happen all at once. It's the result of steady, intentional effort over time. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep moving forward, one step at a time. And finally, trust the power of your ripple. You may not see the full impact of your actions right away. In fact, you may never see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Think about a tree. When someone plants a seed, they don't expect it to grow into a towering oak overnight. They water it, nurture it, and trust that, in time, it will grow. Your actions are the same. You plant seeds of change, and even if you don't see the results immediately, they're taking root. But let me ask you this: what kind of ripple will you create? Will it be one of fear or one of courage? Will it spread love or perpetuate hate? Will it bring people together or drive them apart? Because here's the thing, your ripple matters. Even the smallest act of justice, the smallest act of kindness, has the power to create waves far beyond what you can see. You might inspire someone who inspires someone else, and before you know it, a movement is born. So, let me leave you with this thought: you are the one in a million. You are the chosen one. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're brave enough to ask the questions. And as you move forward on this path, remember this: the world may never fully understand your journey. It may never give you the recognition you deserve. But that's okay, because the ripple you create will speak for itself. It will reach places you'll never go, touch lives you'll never meet, and inspire change you'll never see. You are not just one person, you are a force. And the world is waiting for your ripple. Now, go out there and create it.